Straight into it then with OpTic Chicago, a side that would definitely be expected to be up in the Sunday conversation come Call of Duty Champs, a side though that have had a third, a couple of fourths, and then a top 6. So definitely a mixed bag, definitely been an underwhelming year, but can they do it? Let me break down their strengths and weaknesses, as well as a lot of other teams up at the top end in this video. Just a reminder that this is Reverse Sweep Round 11, presented by USA Insurance. OpTic then, how do they go forward from here and take on COD Champs? Well, the first strength that I have to give them is their map pool. They have been working on this diligently. They have a lot of areas in where they're very good and a lot of areas where they're okay. Not too many weaknesses in there, which is great over a best of 5, and it's even better over a best of 9. I think that they are one of the few teams that can take the likes of Atlanta FaZe through a best of 9 and give them a good duel on a range of maps and modes. Let's face it, their skill ceiling is incredibly high. If they all came together on the same page, you've got Scump and Formal, two of the best to ever play the game. Dashy, ridiculous. He has that slaying potential that no one else in the league possesses. If you can combine that with a bit more teamwork and fundamental stuff, he can really recognize that potential. And Envoy has a role really that no one else in the league has, and he really can do some very special things on the map. Their weaknesses, Toronto Ultra. They can't beat them. They can't do anything about them. They need to figure out how to take them down. A big part of that is going to be Insight, who just loves playing against the ARs of OpTic Chicago, really puts them under, buries them down, squashes all of that potential that's there. Also, Formal, he has to pick it up. He just does. He's not been good enough for this OpTic Chicago side. You could argue very strongly that a lot of their major problems have been because of Formal not stepping up, especially against the top end sides. He's fine against the rest of the league, but OpTic Chicago need more than that. For star player, I'm going with Scump. He has been phenomenal. OpTic Chicago started the year so poorly in S&D. Scump has been brilliant for them and flipped it on its head. And if he can keep doing that, as well as pick it up just a tiny bit in the respawns, he truly can lead this team and the green wall to another champs ring. The X factor, I'll go back to what I said about Formal. If he's playing well, OpTic are untouchable. If he's playing poorly, OpTic just can't pick it up. There's too much slack there from your main AR, from your vocal leader, that just isn't coming through in the gameplay, and it's a really tough one for them. In terms of chances, I'm going to give them a really good backing here and say that I expect them to win it if my favorites do not. I'm having them as the dark horses. I really do think that they're peaking at the right time, that they can do it. Next up, Dallas Empire, a team that have been on their own issues and journey throughout the year. The Huke debacle, Fellow, Vivid, everything in between that's been going on, and they are still, and have been pretty much all season, at the top end conversation. Last year's champions, can they defend the throne? Well, some of their strengths definitely come from their experience. You've got Rambo Ray in that back room, one of the greatest minds in Call of Duty. You've got Crimsix, the most winning player of all time, and then Shotzi and Illy, who both won last year. They both were part of that champs winning squad last year, so they know how to do it, especially when it comes to the big one. Another one of their strengths is that they're not bad anywhere. There's nowhere where you would sit there and say, Empire definitely crumble there. Empire definitely fall apart in that area. They're just good at everything. They don't have anything that they're bad at. It's really difficult to point at things and just say, yeah, Empire, not a chance there. So if we move over to the weaknesses then, the problem with that is that they're not bad anywhere, but they also don't stand out anywhere. There's nowhere where they will 1,000,000% take something in a series. And I think this is concerning for several reasons, but one of the main ones being that you don't have anything you can rely on. Some teams will come into champs, they expect to take the S&D, they expect to take the hard point, they expect to outslay the opponent. Dallas don't have any of that. They have to come out and all play really well on the same page and execute those fundamentals, otherwise it all goes a bit pear-shaped. And the final weakness for me that I want to highlight is the lack of momentum that they're going to have coming into champs. They started the season really well. They fell off through the middle, came back really strong with a second place in that 4th major and pushed Atlanta FaZe all the way. But then they come out in the last major and they just flat. They just didn't really do anything. There's all these storylines ongoing, and Dallas Empire was well and truly in the background and then walked out quietly after losing to OpTic. And for me, that's kind of concerning, because have they reached the peak then with Vivid? Have other teams caught them up already? What do they do from here? Star player has to be Shotzi. This boy has major takeover potential at any moment. Ridiculous movement, ridiculous game awareness and intelligence. Really does have that star potential to see out a big series. So I'm keeping an eye on him. In terms of X factor, I'm looking at Illy. I do think that when he's playing well, this side gels together much, much better. And when he's not, it's this weird all over the place scenario, especially for the SMGs who don't have that that AR in behind them to cover over as much. It's on him to see how Dallas do throughout this one. In terms of chances, they're good. Obviously, you can never write Dallas Empire out. I expect them to be at least top 4. I expect us to be talking about them on that Sunday. But it's difficult for me to sit here and say I expect them to win because I just don't. On to the Toronto Ultra, a team that came second overall in the league. Definitely the surprise package through the year. They have a major win, a couple of thirds, a second place. They have been fantastic. First strength definitely has to be around their chemistry. These boys get on with each other. They play the game very well. They're super calm, composed, collected whenever we look into the communications, and they're just on the same wavelength, but also behind the scenes as well. I think that it's fair to say the end of Major 5 will have been a really bitter blow, a bit of a stinger, but I just see these boys getting together again, huddling around each other and just being like, it's okay, guys. We got to that grand final. Remember that. Let's make this work. So I think that they have fantastic chemistry, something that a lot of these teams might not have, might not possess. It's really good to be able to lean on your teammates in tough situations, in close matches, and these boys can certainly do that. I think as well, they're incredibly consistent, right? They've never really had a big drama other than that grand final in Major 5. They just go and get the job done. They walk on stage, they beat the bottom half of teams, they comfortably see out the mid-pack teams, and most of the time, they duel really well with the top teams. They get up, they do the job, they get out. Very good. Star player, Cammy, gotta be. Absolutely fantastic individual. He can run any map, mode, weapon, role in this team, and he does it phenomenally. He's a very, very good talent. I really, really am glad to see him up there as MVP nominee. Don't expect him to win it, but he is rightfully up there as one of the best players over the year. X Factor, I'm going with Bance. I know it's kind of harsh because earlier on in the year, he spoke about his mental health struggles and how he nearly retired and all that stuff. I do feel for that, and I do think that Bance has been great when Toronto have been great, but he has also not been great when Toronto have struggled, and I think it heavily leans on him and how well he does alongside his duo and Kleenex as to the success of Toronto Ultra in this championship. Does he come out and produce a stage 2 performance, or does he come out and produce a lackluster performance? Chances are very high, right? They're going to be at Sunday. If they're not at Sunday, it's a major disappointment to the end of their season. It really is. They are such a consistent team, such a solid side that can beat pretty much anyone in the league, and I really do think that they will be in that top 3 come the end of it. And finally, Atlanta FaZe, the dynasty in waiting. Can they seal it? Can they get that crown by winning COD Champs? Well, if they're going to, one of the big strengths to this side is going to be that format, right? I mean, love it or hate it, they are into winners round 2. They have to win 3 series to go on to win COD Champs, and that is a blessing for a side that have been in double-digit series wins back to back over the year at multiple times. It's definitely a situation for them where they can just go the easy route and take this. Any map, any mode is basically what I've got written down in my notes, and that's because they are incredible at everything. It would have been really, really difficult for me to sit here and go, oh, they're great at this, because they're great at everything. They have 2 maps where they're negative throughout them all. S&D, Express, and Standoff. They avoid those. They're positive pretty much everywhere else. So they're very, very solid, and just a side that can and probably will, in my opinion, go on to dominate this tournament. Weaknesses. Now, as much as the bracket does favor them in terms of putting them in that winners round 2, I think that there's a big problem for them here. They've just come off the back of a period where they've finally been tested. They've lost 3 in the last 4 series. They were massively upset by Seattle's surge on LAN. They have not had time to come out, play the league games that would usually go, okay, yeah, Atlanta FaZe are back to normal. Atlanta FaZe have just bullied everyone in the group stages. They don't have that. Their first game is going to be, more than likely, OpTic Chicago in winners round 2. An OpTic Chicago that is going to be backed by a screaming crowd on LAN, cheering on everything that they do and jeering anything that Atlanta FaZe try and get going. For me, if this is the scenario that unfolds, it's a big problem for Atlanta that they have to overcome. And finally, Arcites, can he pick it back up? He has been poor lately. I hate to say this because he's such a talented player and such a nice human being, but he has had it difficult lately. And if he struggles, if that main AR is not performing, it is so hard for everyone else to pick up the slack. His numbers can look a bit weaker because his teammates go out and kill everything. They go out and slay everything and he doesn't have to. That goes against him a little bit and should be lent into this, but I do genuinely think that he's just been poor lately. Star player, easy. Simp, he's a generational talent. He really is. You saw how disappointed he was at the end of that last major. Top 8 being the worst finish he's ever had, which is just ridiculous. And I do think that he comes out with this one with a fire, with a point to prove, and comes out and even turns it up somehow on what he usually delivers. X Factor, Arcites. As I mentioned a minute ago, if they are doing well at Atlanta FaZe, it's because Arcites is doing his job, doing his bit whilst the rest of the team get to play their game. If he doesn't do that, it is so difficult for the rest of Atlanta FaZe to go about and play their roles and not have them be punished at any point. Chances then, well, these are the favorites, right? They've had that bad patch, but I think you would very much so struggle to find people who still don't back Atlanta FaZe with how dominant they've been this year. They've won 83% of their matches. That's insanity. And so they are the favorites to go on to win COD Champs, and I do think that they will do it and seal that dynasty. Anyway, let me know what you think. Let me know if you agree in the comments below. I'll see you in the next one.